It's our chosen one. Oh yeah. We're here? All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, make some noise for your favorite Sith Lord, Ian McDiarmid!
I'm cutting back on electricity.
It's a cost-saving move, right?
Exactly.
Well, welcome. I already let the crowd know that we had a little teaser panel last night.
Yes.
And so we should run down the clip notes real quick. This is one of your first times to the Pacific Northwest.
Sure is.
Okay, you were just recently in Miami, so I'm sure you're freezing right now.
I was, yes. I borrowed my friend's jacket. Fortunately, it's the right color.
Let's see, we talked about childhood iconic heroes, and you went with...
What did I say?
Christopher...
Oh, yes, of course. It's when the word hero is always confusing to me.
Yes.
Because villain is my obsession, as I think we may have picked up. Christopher Lee is my favorite villain of all time. He's also really
very iconic, the fact that, then you made him be your disciple.
I said his unfortunate phrase 300 times, and the one you'll remember is the one that George Lucas picked, and it was this one. Kill it.
And then we talked about your experience with Star Wars before you were cast in Return of the Jedi.
That's true. I saw the first one, New Hope, we now know it's called, and I thought it was great because it reminded me of when I was a kid. We used to go to Saturday morning movies when you had cartoons, cool cartoons as opposed to animated movies, and there was a serial, and you were always left on the edge of the cliff every Saturday morning, and that movie is a series of being left on the edge of the cliff, and it has a cliff in it as well. So that was my first experience, but I didn't know I was in it. I didn't know Peter Cushing was talking about me. And then later on, I found out that he was. So that was very odd and entirely pleasurable.
Now, how did you get the job for Return of the Jedi? Did it have anything to do with Dragon Slayer?
You're so clever. Dragon Slayer was my first ever movie. That was an experience and a half. I was almost incinerated. You met by the dragon. And the dragon was a great flamethrower. And the day I was due to be incinerated, the character, everybody in the studio was wearing these great sort of anti-fire, garments and everything, except me. And everybody had a mask on, strong mask, flame resistant, all of that, except me. And as the flame got closer and closer, it got hotter and hotter, unlike today, and almost scalded me. However, it helped the performance. Yeah, that was my first ever film, and the director happened to be someone who was kind of a pupil of George Lucas, but I don't think that had anything to do with me getting Star Wars. But it was my first experience of a big Hollywood movie that was made in London, like the Return of the Jedi was.
Very cool. Now, I have a question. As a school teacher with a master's in education and sociology, I'm curious about how your master's in psychology has helped you with your career and your characters.
Probably not at all. I was itching to get out of college and to do some acting really all the time. But it's a degree in social science, which is a distinguished profession. It's always seemed to be a little contradictory, social science. But no, it's a very respected profession, and a lot of people I know have followed it. But I didn't really go into much psychological depths. I was longing for it to be about Freud and dreams and things like that, but I never really got to that stage because after my third year there, I scraped a degree. I have to be honest with you. When the names were put on the board, I thought I was a misprint. Not the first time in my life, really. But I wasn't. I got through, and so I could satisfy my family, my father in particular, by saying, yes, I have a degree to fall back on, and now I can maybe try and do what I really want to do. And I did.
Are there ever days where you, as a accomplished Shakespearean actor, ever scratch your head and go, how did I become the face of evil for sci-fi and fantasy for the last 4 decades?
Yes, sort of every hour, really. I've never got over it. Here I am talking to you guys about this character I've played over, God knows, about 40 odd years. And I never imagined it would happen. I mean, Star Wars, for goodness sake. It was such an unreal prospect, particularly for a relatively young, 33-year-old, 5-year-old, maybe, British actor to contemplate. And it still is. But I always loved villains. I loved the idea of playing villains when I was a kid. We used to play games, my gang, local gang, we played Robin Hood a lot. I said, well, I want to play the villain. And they went, what, the Sheriff of Nottingham? And I said, no, King John, because he's worse. That always be in the back of my mind. But Shakespeare is one thing, and Star Wars is another, but George, who is never at all pretentious about his work, I know would admit to the fact that the whole arc of Star Wars, particularly the story of Vader of Anakin, is Shakespearean, in as far as it's the downfall of a tragic hero. And that's, quite many of Shakespeare's plays are about that, so we have that in common.
Now, obviously, your role at Star Wars has dominated your film career, but you've worked with other directors too, Frank Oz, Tim Burton, Mike Newell. What goes into you picking your roles when you're outside of the having to use a lightsaber?
Well, frankly, they usually pick you. It's usually that way around rather than you picking them. But wonderful working with Tim and indeed Johnny. That was a very happy experience, Johnny Depp, in that movie, with a lot of very funny, good English actors. And that was great, but of course working with Yoda, as he later came to be known in my career, Frank Oz, who directed Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Michael Caine and Steve Martin. And I hadn't met Frank at that point, and they were looking, my agent said, for somebody who would play Michael Caine's sidekick. Would I go down, it happens a lot like this in the industry, would I go down to London and meet Frank, who was there in a hotel? He would like to improvise with me to see if I was suitable for the part. So we met and talked a little bit, not too much about Star Wars, and I improvised and I made him laugh, and he offered me the part. So then we went out to the south of France and had a very good time, and it was very difficult not to laugh at Steve Martin every minute of that movie because he's such a funny man, and keeping a straight face on those takes was one of the greatest achievements of my acting career.
Now, your character shows up quite a bit, even in the modern animation shows for Star Wars. Have you ever thought about returning to the role of Senator Palpatine, now that Disney Plus is doing a lot of shows in a lot of different time frames?
Well, if they got down on their bended knees and begged me to do it, I've heard it's very good. Are you an audio actor? No, I think I'm probably now a little old. Although it is amazing what they can do with people's faces in the movies, and not just with makeup. But I think probably the story of Palpatine would be quite an interesting one to tell, going way back from when he was a kid. But if it happens, and so many things happen in the Star Wars universe, I suppose one day in life, it would be a good opportunity for another much younger actor. And if I'm going to heaven or hell, I would certainly put the movie on and watch it.
Hey, let Disney Plus know. Would you guys watch a Senator Palpatine series?
Tell Lucasfilm and then send a copy of the email to Disney Plus and then see what happens.
Well, fantastic. Well, guys, like I said before, it's not just me asking the questions here. If you have a question for the Sith Lord here, we're going to ask that you come and make a line right here down the middle. And David, are you going to... Oh, do you want to dismiss our accomplices here?
Do they want to stand down? Yes, they do.
So with like a lot of the prequel memes, which are really popular, like Ewan McGregor with like the hello there high ground, he's probably like the top of the prequel memes. And then you, I would imagine, is like probably the second. What do you think about like just like simple words like either like do it or I am said it? Like it's not really like so iconic and yet like everyone says it. And
I know it's such a surprise that the lines that people pick on, because when you're doing a movie, you don't think about that at all. You just think about the scene and so on. And but some of them really reverberate more and more. I was asking my favourite yesterday, and I gave a list. But I suppose the one I love most, just thinking about it today, considering the situation the world in, that we're all in, is the most daring, almost, description of hypocrisy you can think of. When this man that I play says, in all, in quotes, sincerity, I love democracy.